Alright folks, so tonight it's going to be fun. Get back to actually crafting. Looking at my computer screen while I browse for reference materials, boring. So, what we're going to do is we're actually going to be sculpting, or at least attempting to sculpt, a Minecraft Wither. I think Chewy came up with that one, and kind of was the more popular vote. And also, so you guys are a little bit looped in, is I'm testing putting it as a game in Twitch as well, and seeing if we can get some discovery that way and get some more friends in here. But the big difference for this sculpt than the last sculpt is a couple. One of them is that we're not going to be doing a flat sculpt, we're going to be doing a 3D sculpt. So the Necronomicon was pretty flat, and you know, sort of, it's two-dimensional and relatively easier to sculpt, but it's also not as challenging. Oh, hi Zinnia. So we are going to be doing a Wither sculpt. I'm just setting up my table right now. I should probably put tools on here so it looks interesting. I'm just pulling all the supplies out because I had my sculpting tools all tucked away from the last project. So this should be enough to get going. I'll just leave this here. The other difference too is we're not going to be using an oil clay this time. We're actually going to be using a polymer clay. Super Sculpey is the brand name of this stuff. The difference between this and the oil clay that we used before is that it's firmer to start, so that means we can actually do finer detail into it, which is good because this is going to be a little smaller. And then also, oil clay we had to thin down with extremely volatile and smelly hydrocarbons. That is actually not healthy at all. So Sculpey and Super Sculpey, you can actually use rubbing alcohol to thin it and shine it up. So it'll be a little easier to work with and get a better finish on top of it. And Tim's Yo-Yo, it's actually an excellent suggestion, which is what I was planning on doing. So instead of just doing a normal blocky Wither, we're going to try and give it a little bit of our own touch, and we are going to try and make it look like some real skeletons. So what I did is I went and I pulled some reference materials from online after we closed the stream. I went and I looked a little bit more, and what I was able to find, so this is the basic Minecraft Wither. So I got some anatomical references, and I also found a creepy conjoined fetus, conjoined twin, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So that's like how this is like actually a real thing, and you can see how the sort of merged multiple head skull thing could actually happen in the anatomy. So between this, and I actually have this for reference, and this is kind of going to be the size that we want to have it at. So about, you know, if you go down to the pelvis, let that hang out. So be about that big, right? And so this way, by having this kind of reference here, I can actually use, oops, I'm throwing things off my table, hold on. I can use something like calipers like this, so we can actually get kind of really nice references and measurements for distances to really help tune it in. So we can get pretty precise and hopefully get a pretty cool result. So I haven't attempted a sculpt like this before, so this will be a little bit of a learning experience. So I appreciate your patience, and I appreciate your company, because I think this is going to be fun. So, drop my other reference. So to get started, first things first, we actually are going to need to build an armature, because the Wither, if you notice, if this is actually a good example right here, no arms, no legs, and actually no pelvis. It's just kind of that, right? It's cool and they float, but that kind of makes it hard to sculpt from because a lot of it's very top heavy. So what we're going to do first is build an armature to build it on, and that's actually there's stuff. It's armature wire. This is a specialty type of wire that you can use to do it, and you just build your clay around it. It's like a framework. Boom. Another thing that I forgot to mention about Super Sculpey, which which I'm sure Brandon already knows, is that this can go in the oven. So when we're done, we can actually bake it to make a hard master copy. So when we pull subsequent molds from it, I will always have a really solid original master copy that doesn't have any detail loss. So let's play, sorry, I'm getting like really excited about this. I'm really excited about this project. So let's play fantasy thinking here. And what happens if, say we get thousands of people come and watch a stream and everybody's super excited and everybody wants their own little copy of this. What I can do is having a stronger or a solid masterpiece is I can make mold after mold after mold of that one. And then have multiple production runs of the mold, and I can make like 5, 10 at a time, and just rip through them and crank them out. My ultimate goal with doing this kind of stuff is to not just make art that fits into this one piece of content, but to make something that we can share, that I can make copies of and give away and get in the hands of other people. So this is kind of a way to do that. So just like with the Necronomicon, is we can put a lot of time and effort into the sculpt itself and then make copies of it. Because otherwise you have to make it by hand every single time over and over and over and over and over and over again, and that is tedious. So any questions so far? Machinima Salsi. Why does that name seem extraordinarily familiar? How's it going, Evan? Evan and I work together at Machinima, so it's nice to have him jumping in. And if I'm not mistaken, Ricky might be jumping in too. Oh, and Hungry Hundar, one of our famous personalities at Machinima as well, from Machinima Realm. How's it going, sir? So first things first, we're going to build the armature. So the armature helps hold it up, but there's kind of a problem in that this metal wire you use is a bit smooth. So it would hold it in place, but if you try to the clay will rotate on it. So what you kind of do is you build a... I'm not a teacher, thanks, Tim. I think I learned how to explain things when I tried to teach my mom how to use a computer when I was a kid. I had to really dial back the explanations, like really dial back. So hopefully I've tried to use that habit to when I'm explaining things past that. So one of the things you can do with the armature is if you wrap a smaller cable around the bigger cable, then when you pack the clay around it, it has something to hold on to and it doesn't twist. It also kind of gives it a little more structure. So I think what we're going to do is have a base. I kind of would like to do some... oh yeah, and Brandon's right, tinfoil works really well for that as well. Which I normally would do if we weren't making such a thin spine kind of thing going on with it. It's just kind of a little bit of a particular thing for this one. Sorry, this is a little tough. Let's actually just snip this end piece off because I don't think that's gonna... Well, no, let's leave it on. We'll see why in a sec. We're going to want a base to this as well because since it's a floating skull, it just can't really freestand. So we'll probably build like a little bit of a terrain and make it look realistic-ish. And then maybe kind of imply the blocky shapes and texture through that as well. So I want him to kind of look like he is floating a little bit, but we're going to kind of cheat it. And Brandon, you're right. Also, yeah, silicone mold. I think this is going to be one that we're going to actually try and mold for realsies, to really get like a good solid quality mold out of it. So for distance, for sizing, this is going to be our reference. So I'm going to use this to primarily kind of estimate how long our dimensions need to be. And this way, because we're trying to go for anatomical accuracy, you kind of need to have this reference available to you. It's one thing to have it on the screen where you're just kind of checking it and making tweaks and changes. It's another thing when you actually have something you can measure down to a pretty fine level of detail. So a wood base for this. I do not have a wood base for this. I'm going to try and do it clay all the way down solid through. But actually, that's a really interesting point. No, I can't do foam because I'm going to bake it. No, I think I have an idea. I think it's good. I do have Lazy Susan to work on though when we do this. If it goes terribly wrong, we'll work with it from there. But so first things first, we want to cut the armature, and then we'll get started. Yep, hold on just a second. All right, so Brandon brings up a really good point. So how are we going to attach it down, right? So what I was thinking is we only really need about this much, and I mean really about there, because I don't know how much we have. We can always lift it out higher, but I was just going to do this just to get it started. Is just really just make a little bit of a coil. Let me go get some tape. All right. So Brandon, of course, is spot on that we need to, while we're working on this, it's going to be a little difficult to stick down. So once the clay's down, it's going to really take up most of it. So I'm not too concerned about that, but to kind of give it a helping hand, I think we can attach it to the board. So I'll probably do something like this, and I'll just tape it down. And once the clay's actually down on around it, it's going to stick down just fine. All right. Is that how high we want it? About there, you think? Let me flatten out this piece. trying to think. I mean, it's like really a question. It's like, how tall do you really want this sucker? That should be good. I was thinking 6 inches is about that high. Let's go with that. Work our way through there. As long as the majority of up to the, because that would put the skull about there. You know, if we want to go bigger, I think we could slope it back almost like it's leaning. So let's do that. Alright. We'll try the painter's tape first, because it has less tack, which is good when we want to take it off. Come on. Maybe go work it a little higher. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's gonna hold down. I'm not too worried about it. Yeah, I mean, it's a really valid point to worry about holding it down in place. I don't really have like wood that's cut for it. I'm actually looking at getting a little bit of a shop space where I can do more work, or more, you know, heavier duty crafting, I guess you could say. Because I actually live in a second-story apartment, and the problem with that is that I can't really do anything loud with power tools. So in some ways, the sculpting is a bit of a necessity to that, you know. But we'll figure it out. I'm not too worried. Should actually start low and work our way up. I'll flip onto the detail cam once we actually start doing some sculpting. Let's crimp. Just got to get the first bite of it on there, and then we'll wrap our way up. And definitely wanted to get a Lazy Susan for this, because it will make sculpting much easier. Last project didn't really have a fit for it, you know. I wouldn't say that it was a good match to need to be able to turn it, I mean, considering how wide it was. But this is a way to you know, make this a little easier, and then also I don't have to keep moving the camera around, because that was kind of a pain in the butt. Zenith team, welcome. If you just jumped on, we're just starting with creating the armature base for the clay, so that we have a little more of a sturdiness for the wither, since it's kind of all top. You know, we're going to try and do a little bit of a anatomically correct one. Give it a little bit of a distinct personality for us. The funny thing is that actually maybe the detail cam is good for this. Let's see. Hey, that works, right? Maybe it actually makes more sense to flip it around. The glove on my Twitter looks like the power glove from Mission Impossible. I'm trying to think which glove. I think that was the is that the orange and black one? Because it was for Realm. And I did that back when we did more live action stuff. I don't know. I have trying to work on revamping my site so it's a little better for this. But anyway. So just to help set expectations, tonight's going to be probably just getting a lot of clay on the board. You know, detail stuff's not going to come for probably till later in the week. But at least we can start getting the shapes blocked out and sort of the rough idea of what we want to do. Let's see. Where's my snips? There we go. Trying to think if we should build out the branching for the head, because the other two heads, I don't really know how I want to position and place those just yet. Oh geez, why is it so blown out? Oh, it's because it's auto exposing. Okay, sorry, let me fix that. So detail, properties, config, advanced, and auto. Save. Auto. Save. Okay. There you go. This should stop jumping around so much. Sorry about that. Okay. So if we wanted to use these measurements, let's kind of get a quick rough idea of the width. This is what the width of the shoulders is going to be. So we probably should at least put more of a T for the framing of that. So if the top of the skull, let me flip back to the overhead. Tim's, I'm in the US, California to be specific. So if we want to, so let's figure that this, the top of it is, let's say we're at the base of the skull, right about just under where the eyes are. So where the skull attaches here, right? Maybe a little bit in, just to support the head, because we're going to need a little bit of clay over the top of that, right? So the shoulders are going to be about, so if this is the shoulder here, maybe about a little more than about that ish, be about that far down, or that far. So we'll, right about there is where we want some. And the question is, this actually works, having two of these, so I can actually measure a couple. Hey Red, nice to have you come on. You picked a good night. We're just starting off our wither sculpt. So the shoulders are going to be about this wide, and it's going to get weird because we're overlapping sort of the three rib cages into each other. So, but we want about that much wire. So I think, just for sturdiness, probably want to double the wire at least. So about that, and then about that again. So right about, give it a little bit of extra, and we'll snip. Kind of being a little, favoring the distance a little bit. So we're going to fold this in half, and then we're going to wrap and twist it, and then this will kind of serve as the frame for the shoulders. So there we go. Oh, they're a little crooked. I feel like I should get like little levels for it and get little bubbles. And Red, yes, Wither from Minecraft. I think we're going to try and do a little bit of an anatomically correct one. I think it's something we're going to try and actually get out to molding to make copies of it. So let's see. This was this our width, right? Yeah, so this was our shoulder width. And we're pretty close, which is good. We should also, if we fold this in half to about there, now we can kind of see where that midpoint is that it needs to be. Just put a kink in it. So there's about the middle, right? And then about here, right? Right about there. Let's see. Trying to think the best way to do this. Because brute force by hands is a good way to piss off my carpal tunnel. Oops. Kind of wants to make its way down, doesn't it? Have to really get it tight. Sorry, I'm kind of blocking the view a bit. Let's see if I can move this so you can see a little better. Let's make sure we're still about as far as we should be. Ish. Good. Yeah, kind of in the right spot, which is good. And I can crimp this around this spot too, so we're okay. You know, you can just put a flat crimp in there. Still not wanting to cooperate. What is something I can use? Let's try this. Okay. So we're gonna put this here, like this, and then we crimp here. What I should have done is I should have put this underneath and then wrapped the center coil around it. Would have been better, but oh well, you live and learn. And the other thing too is that armature lets you kind of get the lets you kind of start with this sort of stick posing of it as well. It's kind of an initial pose. All right, we're gonna have to do a little bit of cross wrapping, I think. Let me just check and make sure that we're still make sure our width is still okay. Yeah, we're still good. Okay. So, trying to be careful not to bulk up the armature too much because it is a thin creature, right? So, it's potentially will show anything if we're not careful. So let's do this and this and then this, and we'll wrap it around. Once we get clay down, it'll hold together pretty well, I think. I'm not doing this as well as I should. To be honest, I kind of screwed it up a little bit, but oh well. Happy little trees, right? Really just need friction. There we go. We've made a tiny little cross. We did it. Okay. So I kind of envision this thing being a little imposing, right? So yes, that's good. It's a little back. Right? A little bit like that. Kind of see just imposing a little bit of curve to it. This is just to help impart a little bit of personality. We may have to change it later, but at least get a... And also maybe... Yeah. It's just to give it some flow, right? All right, let me move this armature wire. We don't need it. Okay. All right. So, YOLO Man for life. Welcome, welcome. Now I think it's time to get some clay down. So let's just go ahead and start ripping some clay in. I'm going to go ahead and go back overhead while we do this, at least. And honestly, I don't think we need to keep it in a box. We can just kind of keep it out. Or at least let me... shoot, where is... Need to find my tool for scraping. Leave the room. Sorry. Domestic problems. Oh, the tools are on. Yep. All right, hold on. I need my big scooper to start ripping some clay off. Give me a sec. Let me go find it. Probably should have done a better job of laying my tools out before I started. It's in here somewhere, I swear. Hopefully it wasn't just stupid and I threw it in there. Is it in here? No, it is not. I have a tool that specifically will be helpful for pulling clay off. Oh, hey. I want this too. At least I'm finding all my other tools. Our spatulas in pieces. It's good. Like finding everything but. There it is, there it is, there it is. That's what I wanted. Perfect. Okay. Actually helps because I need to clean out some of the junk tools in here. They're all covered with oil clay, which will be useless to us. There we go. In case you're wondering what all that noise is, I keep everything in a little cup next to it. Okay, that's good. So we just need to start getting the pieces down. So the one downside to Sculpey is that because heat cures it, that actually means that we can't like soften it in like say a crock pot or something like that, which you can do with oil clay, where we could just you know, soften a bunch of up there and then slop it on and work our way out. So there's also a chance I may need to buy more clay, but I think we may be okay. The other thing worth noting too is the oil clay. So it really is just making a decision between using different types of materials, because the oil clay will be good for bigger projects that don't need as much fine detail, you know. Make it a good position. There we go. So something like the book, which is a pretty wide cover, I mean, it's, you know, it's about yay big. Oil clay is actually kind of almost preferable, because that way we can cover a lot of ground, it's not super expensive, and then also it's, you know, at that size and scale, having reusable material is actually pretty good for us. Alright. But the downside is that this being a nice firm clay, it's also kind of a pain in the butt. You know, it's pretty dense stuff, and building it up like this and mashing it on at a big scale is a little more difficult. But I think it's good for us in the end. So just we'll suffer through it, but I think we'll be good in the end. She should just, oops, rough our way through. I mean, Brandon, you're right. We probably should have gone for a wood block underneath it. That probably would have just been a better way to go. But oh well, what are you gonna do? So I just want to get some rough clay around the base. We're probably gonna make the base a good bit bigger than this too. So where's our reference? Because if we use our reference, if we were to go down all the way to the base of the spine, let's say we're using the shoulders as sort of our reference point. That's about where it's going to be floating. About there. Hey dude, what's up? Pixie Washer, thank you for stopping by. Welcome. Famous Films. I hope that Dragon Mask is still holding up for you. I was going through some old conversations and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I forgot I sent one of those out. Yeah, if it needs any repairs, let me know. But, okay. Catastrophe and Emily, welcome. Alright. Let's see. Thanks for the shout out, Red. Alright, so we're gonna just start kind of working our way up the armature. Let me know if it's out of focus. Let's set the focus here right now. I'm not going to move the camera. We know where it's going to be. Detail, properties. So this is going to be our focal depth right about here. There we go. Very, very cool. All right, so let's just start working. Putting some clay up the base. This is the fun part, you know? It's very difficult to screw things up at this phase. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is certainly possible, but it certainly is not as easy to make one tiny little mistake that just undoes weeks worth of work. I always get super duper duper nervous during those phases, you know, when we're getting in that home stretch with the Necronomicon, and it's just like, man, I was just waiting for one thing to just completely ruin it. Alright. What? My cat decides he wants attention, specifically when I'm in the middle of doing something. That and at 1 a.m. Like, seriously, it's like creepy clockwork. I don't know what's wrong with him. Hey, buddy. I'm just gonna have to chill out. Alright. Yeah, you could probably hear Lugnut around. There are two cats, Lugnut and Pancake. Pancake is colloquially known as Project Cat. She's usually like chilling out under the desk, just happy to be within 3 feet of what's going on. Lugnut, on the other hand, was he was a bottle-fed cat. He was rejected by his mother, and so we're starting to realize why. Because I think he's mentally not put together right. Doesn't really know what he is. He in the mornings will pretty much like cram his face up against the crack underneath the door and meow to get attention. At some point, oh, he just wandered off. I'll have to introduce y'all. But just the top, just getting the shapes down. This is all, of course, subject to change. Because the other thing is, if we make it too hollow, like say we made just a really 100% representation of a skeleton, right? Perfect. A perfect skeleton. I couldn't mold it because of all the hollow spaces inside of it. You actually wouldn't really be able to, make a duplicate of it. So it would be a good one-off, but it would miss sort of the intent of making copies of it. So because of that, we have to think about how we're going to fill the void sort of where the guts normally go, right? Because if we go too gory with it, then it's going to look more like a zombie, which, yeah, maybe might be a good thing. I don't know. But you know, I kind of want to keep a little bit true to the wither, because the intent-wise, you know, Minecraft, there are zombies, right? And that's a very clear design decision that they've made about having zombies. The wither is sort of something else. It's that charred skeleton from the, you know, you summon as a demon. So it should probably err more towards demonic than corpse. But there are ways that we can represent the different parts. I'm going to work around the base a little bit, so move the camera. There's ways that we can represent the different parts a little better, and the void. Unfortunately, it's a little difficult for me to jump on and type because my hands are a little busy. But it's always nice. Actually, a lot of the initial advertisement, if you want to use that word, of PropCraft was from Red and Tiff hopping in and being super awesome about it. I always thank those guys. So I'm just kind of like building up around the back, trying to just at least build the base just a little bit more. It's kind of inconsequential for the moment, but I just kind of want to evenly flesh it out, right? The rake tool, to be honest, when I first started doing sculpting stuff, like I was like, what the heck do you need a raking tool for? It just seemed like it messed things up. And I started to realize how much, when you're doing really nice fine detail or when you're working with stuff, how much you actually need tools like this to help take all the pieces you've done and bring them together. So it's just kind of it's a way to unify that and the the kidneys, right? Like the serrated kidney tool. It's like, why would you ever want to rough up your thing and ruin it? But it makes a heck of a lot more sense. But that's what's so neat about watching sculpting. You know, browse around online, look at look at different sculptors and stuff out there. 'Cause you're like, okay, yeah, you know, I did a book. I'm pretty hot stuff now, but you see some of the other guys out there, and it's just, geez, it's ridiculous. Gosh, what's that one artist? He does like the different size, hyper realistic people. Gosh, why can't his name's escaping me right now? Australian. Anyway, he does like the giant baby or the tiny little like old couple, and they're just hyper realistic. They look so good. And looking at his sculptures, and he does it from sculpting. That's what's really crazy. It's not like he's making casts of actual people. He's sculpting it out at different sizes, you know. And I hope someday to have that sort of a mastery over anatomy where I could do, you know, high quality stuff like that. Hello, McFlavor Gamer. Firefall thing. I don't know what you're referring to, sir. You guys should start your own projects and jump in, and we can all like have an arts and crafts session while we're sitting in here together. I mean, recently one of the biggest sort of bonuses, or the biggest boost to my art skill, has been just doing the stream. Actually, just having like regular and consistent time set aside to you know, to do it, and that's been super helpful for it, actually. So really, it's all big thank you to you guys. Okay, if I move it back a little bit, now it's out of focus, isn't it? Come on, autofocus. Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, if you don't have art supplies, there's actually a lot around that you can use. You know, drawing is always easy to get your hands on. Just a pencil and paper and just time put into drawing. If you look at Joel from Inside Gaming, he started doing just daily sketches in meetings at work, and he started doing that like 2 years ago, I want to say, and he's really good at it now, and you can really see the progression on it. It's just the time spent, you know. And then actually, yeah, if you have an iPad, there are sketchbook apps that you can use if you want something like that. Like, there really is a lot of options, I think, for if you really are interested. So I'm just going to start by marking off where the here, let me switch over so you can see what I'm doing. Yeah, man, you should definitely get back into painting. Are you more oil paints, acrylics? Like, what's kind of your jam? Let's see. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to measure the rib cage placement, just sort of get the idea of where it is. So if we use the shoulders as sort of our marker for it, bottom of the rib cage is about that wide, about here. So if he's footing back and about there, here's the bottom, right there. And then actually, I want to see where it actually attaches. It's because the attachment point, so that's about how far it should go down, but the ribs extend further down than that. So really from that shoulder point to about here, it's actually about there. There we go. And back. Okay. So the nice thing about having this, actually having this here is I can actually just test it right against the sheet, and then when I put it on here, it makes more sense. So the rib cage is almost like, if you kind of look at the shape, it's almost like this, right? Like two teardrops. I heard it's when you're talking about, like, I don't know if you're like me, but I get, what is it called? It's like information lock or indecision lock or whatever, that I when I get into things, I like to research, but then I over research and end up not doing anything just because there's so many possibilities and options. And I found the really cool quote that kind of helped kick my butt into gear a little bit, and that was gosh, I forget who specifically to credit it to, but it was that don't withhold on doing something because of the time it'll take. Time will pass anyway. So you got to kind of just jump on the path and get going. At our office, the new management that came in brought a book with, which was called The Lean Startup, and it's about sort of entrepreneurial sort of approach and blah 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 blah. But one of the things that they focused on a lot was Toyota and how they approach their manufacturing techniques, and that they, long story short, is they built a way to manufacture on the smallest size possible. So if they ever want to get into something, they're able to just quickly do it and test it and get going on it. Whereas most big companies have to take the time to build up the machines and figure it all out and do that. And then if it's the wrong choice, then they've spent lots of money and, people suffer because of it. So long story short is just kind of get your butt going, just do something. It could be wrong, but if you're, instead of taking 2 weeks to theoretically figure out if you're wrong, you can live test the whole thing and see if you actually are wrong. So let's see, these are a little different sized from each other, so I feel like that's kind of an interesting difference, right? We want asymmetry with this. I do not want it to be symmetrical. So let's add that. All right, so we're gonna just hang these kind of on them. So here to about here, right? Still seems a little anemic. Should be a little more on the bottom. Oh well. We're just kind of blocking shapes, right? From the top of here to the skull, we'll need to figure about how far from the top to where it attaches to the skull, right? And that's where we'll set the ball. So that will be about there-ish, right? It's right about there, which is good. That's right where the exposed metal is. And then we'll start with sort of a rough skull shape. Night, Emily. Thanks for coming by. Hope to see you back. I stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 to midnight. So hopefully we'll see you on the next one. Skeletor, you have a very appropriate name for the project. Thank you for stopping by, and welcome. Okay, so roughly skull shaped, right? Roughly. The positioning, you can see kind of where it attaches be about like there, right? Ish. So imagine the rest of the face and jaw come down through there. Yeah, Brandon, I definitely would love to see those. I love seeing what other people are working on. I just tweeted today something that Punished Props was doing. Chinbeard, he pretty much quit his job to go do cosplay stuff full time, and he is phenomenal. He just did a Destiny rifle or a pistol out of foam that is just stupid good. Stupid good. I aspire to be that man. So there you go. So I'm just gonna make kind of the jaw. All right, so the rough, the sort of the rough shapes of the face. Let's see. Kind of have this guy here. Let's take a look. Let me flip over for a sec. So you can kind of see, I don't know if you can see as well because it's a little blown out, but the skull had, if you look at your face, it's kind of a big ball on top of the head. This one shows it better. So you kind of have the ball on top of the head, and then you have your jaw and lower face, which is more of like a cylinder coming down. And really, if you want to look at it, you have like the little cylinder, which is the inside, which is your teeth, and then you have kind of the bigger cylinder around the outside, which is the mandible and the jaw that wraps around it. So first, we'll probably just make like a little Coke can to like pop in there for that part of it, and then we will, and then kind of maybe wrap another piece to kind of do the next piece. And now it should kind of roughly shape the shape. And also, your face is a little bit like a wedge, like a little bit of a wedge. If you the nose shape a little bit, if that makes sense. So let's see, top of the head down to about there. Really just need. That's why I keep a couple of these handy for kind of a couple of reasons. One is I can just kind of get different measurement shapes. Oops, wrong way. I mean, to be honest, I'm probably not precise enough to really warrant doing this kind of overkill, but it makes me feel really smart and important when I do. So, you're just gonna have to bear with me. Feel like I'll like an engineer or something. All right, it's kind of the shape, right? Let's switch back over. Do I have something I can slice with? Yeah, I think so. Let's pull this guy out. So we'll come at an angle, knock off a little bit at the back. So this is kind of the jaw. And let's see, we have these where we kind of measured top of the head down. It's about right, ish. Let's see, do we want, yes, we want the head off that way, because otherwise this, I don't know, what do you guys think? This way looks a little quizzical, or do we want that way? I kind of feel like this way is better. A little more dynamic, right? We gotta change his angle of look though. So that kind of gives it at least a little more angle. So let's just smooth this out. Where's the tool? Is that the one I want? No, it's not the one I want. I think something that smooths a little more. There we go. So this is, again, where a little bit of the issue runs into is just the fact that it's a harder clay. So blocking out and doing these kind of pieces are a little more difficult, but the once we actually end up doing a lot of detail scratching into it, it's going to really, really be a benefit. So I don't know if you can kind of see, right? It's a little more of a little tiny skull shape, right? This looks a little bit. Other things, I think width. When you look at a skull head on, people kind of have flat sides to the sides of their head. So we're gonna, let's like pop that sucker back down there. And then we'll just, it'll be okay that we're pinching it a little. Really, let's get that on there. I mean, there's a bit of a cop-out here in that it's, you know, a scary, gross monster, so we can actually fudge it quite a bit and kind of get away with it artistically. But I feel like that's kind of lazy. The Darkness, welcome. Thank you so much for jumping in. Man. Amanda, hello. Active Kyle, hello. Really glad to see a lot of new faces in here. Here's actually kind of a cool, if you look, this is just a chunk of clay I broke off from the other piece, but you kind of see how much detail that picked up? Like, it looks like a rock. It could totally be a rock. So if we had stuff like that all around there, I mean, that looks like rocks. So it's kind of a really good example of why this clay is good stuff. Welcome back, Emily. We missed you. Okay. Rough shape, right? So stuff that we're missing is a little more of the buildup. So it actually, you know, when you look at a skeleton, it looks like that the neck is elongated, but that's because that's where all your muscles build in, right? Because when you have shoulder muscles and all that stuff, you know, they block in over the top of that and they fill out in. I mean, because you think about it, like that's what your muscle or your muscles and your bone structure is that your bones, the shape they are made for muscles to attach to them. And that's because muscles pull, right? There's no muscles that push. They're all pulling muscles. So for example, if I push my hand out in front of me, that's actually my pectoralis, your chest muscles, contracting, and they connect. Like here, I can actually kind of show you on this in a real quick way, is that your chest muscles are really, really flat little teardrops that sit right on your chest like this, and connect to this arm bone in there. And so when your arm pushes, this is the muscle that's contracting and it's pulling your arm like this, like a lever, right? And so even when you're quote unquote pushing, you're still muscles contracting to pull. And so when you look at the bone shapes, they're made to fit inside of all those muscles, and they're made to frame around it. Even your shoulder blades, if you think you have those nice wide blades on your back, that's because it's all those muscle points that are attaching to it so that you can contract for pulling your arms out and back that way. Because it's like levers. Because if this is your arm, the muscle to pull your arm isn't like a cable going out to the end of your arm. It actually attaches way back here. So they have to be really strong to, you know, pull the whole piece. All right. Oh, Amanda Jordan. Glad we got a reference. By all means, please. We hope to see you again when you and become one of the regulars. We're pretty much, this is what we do. Just sit around and do arts and shoot the breeze. Okay. Sorry, I got off on a tangent. Okay, so what's next? I know this this feels a little low, but I think when we sculpt out and we'll carve out a little bit more, it'll fit a little more. The other thing too is that this should actually kind of attach and wrap around. You know, your ribs actually attach at the back. I have to say, one of the things, if you're ever drawing people and you ever feel like you're not really getting the positions right and you're not getting the proportions right, if you actually start looking at skeletons and bones and muscles and you try to draw those, it really kind of helps you understand why the shapes are the way they are. Actually, when you go to art school, they make you draw tons of people. Tons of very naked people. Okay. I'm going to bulk up this back a little bit. I feel like it's a little anemic. And then we'll we will want to make sure that we represent the spine really well, right? Actually, alright, so that we're missing the ribs coming around. I didn't really do a good job of sculpting them. So, oh well. Let's see. It really is kind of a judgment call. I mean, part of the issue is, you know, you think as a human being, you're really good at recognizing what people look like. So when proportions are off, it looks weird to you. I mean, if you think of how subtle, the subtle of a difference of what beauty can be, that in a large scale, faces and you know, length of limbs and all that stuff, like it's all pretty close to each other. So if I made 100 of these little things, they would all probably be pretty close in measurements, but there would be little things that are off that make them look bad. And that's because we're so tuned down to a fine detail of those minor differences that it makes a pretty big change. So you have to be really careful how you're approaching it. Does that look better? Looks a little bit like a better rib cage goes around the back, right? And Brandon, they don't make you draw naked people, but it's kind of hard to draw bone structures and reference anatomy when people are covered up, right? You know, it's something you're not used to and you're not exposed to, but once you draw a lot of them, you get used to it and actually see why it's useful. I mean, also too, you know, they're not all beautiful naked people. There's big people, old people, young people. I think out of any of the drawing classes that I did when I was in art school, there was like one person that I think you'd be interested in drawing. You know, one lady, you know, younger 20-something lady who was in good shape. But that's actually good because part of bones and muscles is also fat and fat deposits and all that stuff too. So it's good to see that stuff. You know, it's just people, just anatomy. Okay. I think we got the back fixed up a little bit. It's not where it needs to be. We'll probably add sort of the shoulder blade shape, but I don't know how far should we take the single skeleton before we start slapping heads on there. I don't know. I'm having fun. Let's just keep going. So Emily, yeah, this stuff is called Super Sculpey. It's a polymer clay, and it doesn't dry. You can let this sit out for years and years and years, and it will still be workable. But if you throw it in the oven, it'll bake like clay, and it'll harden up then. For the last project, we used an oil clay, which is similar in that it doesn't dry and that it stays malleable, but if you throw it in the oven, it's going to melt like soup. So we're just trying some different stuff this time. Okay. And Super Sculpey, a block of it, like a kilo of it like this, is not terribly expensive. I mean, I guess price is a relative thing, right? If you're well off or have access to a lot of money, then it's no big deal. But if it's if you're living paycheck to paycheck, then it may be. But usually you can pick up a block of it for anywhere from like 10 to 20 bucks, depending on the size. But usually about 15 bucks, I think, can get you some of the clay. The nice thing is that if you choose not to fire it, then you can just keep reusing it, and practice on it. So, and I don't think I've ever seen it at general stores. So like Walmart's kind of my comparison for just generic store. Usually if I can find it in an art section at Walmart, then you know that like you can get it just about anywhere. But I've usually only found it more at specific art stores. Like if you're in the US, Michael's is kind of a generic hobby store, but usually you'll find Sculpey at most places that have a little more going for them. I'm trying to replicate this shoulder blade. Sorry, I'm doing this off camera, aren't I? Like a jerk. So, okay, so let's get into a discussion about art stores. Hobby Lobby, and I'm gonna be totally crummy right now and say something totally inflammatory, so I apologize in advance. But Hobby Lobby and Michael's is for old ladies, like middle-aged women who like to make beads. I am sorry. I'm completely spoiled being in the LA area where there's a bunch of fantastic places to get art stores, but trust me, the difference between a good art store and a chain like Michael's or Hobby Lobby is like night and day. And you have access to so much more, and you can actually get it cheaper. That's what's really frustrating, is that chain stores like that really do rip you off more than you think, and they just don't have all the good stuff. So again, I apologize. I know that was like kind of inflammatory, but when you're doing art stuff, having a really good go-to place, like where you can find anything, is so much better. Because like if you want to get molding supplies, for example, is a really good example. Usually you can get like a cheap tub of like brush on latex. You can't even find like silicones and stuff there. If you need some good brushes, their brushes are so much more expensive. But I don't know. I kind of almost immediately regret saying that. I apologize. That wasn't called for. Because that said, I go to Michael's quite often to get stuff. If I ever need cheap brushes or cheap stuff, I'll just go there and just grab some, because I know I can always find it at off hours. So never mind, just disregard. that wasn't cool. If you do have the ability to find a good craft store, like a good actual art supply store, look for that term when you're looking for stores, art supply. It's like Disneyland. And you walk in and it's just, Michael's has, they have a lot of the DIY kind of stuff, like, here, buy this glass vase, put this other bag of stones in it, or so and so. But when you go to like a really good art supply store, you can buy canvas, you can buy like 400 different types of paper. You can actually get like 15 different types of polymer clay. Like it's so, you won't want to go back. Let's just put it that way, unless you have to. Usually what I'll do is I'll go to places like Walmart or Michael's when I need like bulk supply, or I just need like cheap stuff, like cheap paint, cheap whatever. I just, where I can get it. That like usually I'll go there like after hours or stuff like that, or if I just need junk acrylic, that where the quality of the paint doesn't really matter itself. That's not to say they have bad acrylic. It's just like it's a good place to get cheap stuff if you need it, right? Cheap stuff is where it's good for. But when you need something a little more than that, then it's really worth going to find a good art supply store. So a good example would be, where is it? This tool, and where's my other one? Yep, this tool, and I have a good one. Where is it? It's hiding. I have a tiny little loop tool. It's probably in the bottom of my bag. Yeah, it's in my bag somewhere. But you can't find these, or at least I haven't been able to find them at like Michael's or Walmart. Have a good night, man. Thanks for stopping by. Really stoked to have you in here. Another YouTube professional. That's crazy. How many actual people with actual like massive figures of subscribers are swinging by. It's pretty cool. Freaking YouTube royalty in here. But the other thing too is like, I wanted to get some alginate. If you don't know what alginate is if you've ever gone to the dentist and if you ever had them take a mold in your mouth, right, and they kind of squirt that paste that then turns into a rubber to get the mold, that's what alginate is. That stuff is specifically dental alginate. It's a rubber that cures quickly and doesn't stick to anything except itself. And it's really good for making high detail molds, which is why they use it in your mouth. And it's also non-toxic, which is again why they can put it in your mouth. You can't find alginate at places like Michael's. You can buy a kit where it's like a mold making kit for your hand or something, but if you want to get just a bag of alginate, you have to go on a hunt for it. So a good art supply store will actually be a place you can find stuff like that. So if you wanted to do a face mold, or you wanted to do a hand mold, or for whatever other reason you wanted to use alginate, that's kind of another reason why to have one hanging around. So totally sidetracked. So this is what I was doing. I was just adding those shoulder blades on just to kind of block out the back a little better. And then I think, maybe we'll just kind of throw the collarbone on there as well. And this is just to kind of get the rough shapes, and we'll go back in and sculpt it down. Oh, hey, Frozen August. Welcome. Yeah, ceramic stops. Oh man, a good ceramic store you can find good stuff at too. The Hydrocal that we cast our last project in, I almost had to go to a ceramic shop to get it, but they only sold it in like 100-pound bags, so I didn't need that much Hydrocal. But I was able to find it at an art supply store that was up in LA on my way into work. Also, art supply stores have cool people working at it. If you like artsy hipsters, then you have to go to an art supply store. Okay. So this is just kind of roughly where that collarbone sticks through, right? Kinda. Let's put a mandible on this sucker. 83 Jack. Try reloading. It shouldn't be green unless anybody else in the channel is having that trouble. Alright, let's put a jaw on this guy. Just a little bit. This is probably going to be good to start getting into the second and third head on this guy so that it'll make more sense. Let's see, this kind of attaches here like this. Kind of like that, right? Oops. So you notice with the jaw tucks back in under the, gosh, my art teacher would shoot me. I don't remember any of these bones like I'm supposed to. So you'll see that the cheekbone will come back and it attaches over. And the reason why you have that little shape to your skull is because the muscles in your jaw go underneath it, and you have this dish on either side of the skull because the muscle attaches to the jaw underneath it and then fans out and attaches the entire side of the skull, and that's what pulls your jaw closed. So that whole muscle pulls up, and that's what pulls your jaw up, and it's all under that little bone that we're going to add. So Frozen August, do I do mostly gaming art related streams? It is what I would like to do. The last project wasn't really gaming related, but I'm going to be trying to do that from now on. Seems more appropriate, especially streaming on Twitch. And I love video games. I really do. It's kind of the cheekbone, right? How far back does it connect? Not that far, I don't think. It's kind of like that. Kind of. We'll be revising this for sure. Right under the eye socket. That's where the eye is. So if you look at a head from top to bottom, if you drew a circle from around the top of somebody's head to the bottom of their chin, their eyeballs are dead center in that shape. It's kind of weird. You don't really think about it. You kind of imagine the eyes to be higher in the face. I think most people recognize it, but if you actually take the time to stop and look, bottom of the chin to the top of the head, the eyes are right in the middle, and it's weird. So it's the bottom of the jaw, so we kind of probably want the top shape. Thanks for stopping in, Red. This is going to be probably going for a little bit, so hopefully we'll be doing this for a little bit of our stream, and then we gotta talk about Queen Mary at some point. So I think we gotta plan that stuff out. So I will see you when I see you, sir. And thank you for stopping in again. And tell Tiff I said hi. And that Amy said hi. No, that looks silly. I don't like that. So 83 Jack, how do you start a stream on Twitch? So you mean doing your own stream? if you're talking about doing your own stream, then what I found to be the easiest is OBS, Open Broadcast Software. It's free. Look up anything that you need online for tutorials and all that kind of stuff, and it can do screen cap. And because I know a lot of people use like XSplit or gosh, what's the other one? The not OBS. Trying to think, can't remember. But yeah, OBS. It's start for free. You know, get the tools to work, and if it works well for you, then you can buy software above that. But for now, I'd say that's a good place to start. Yeah, I'm trying to do too much detail. I'm getting sidetracked. This is not what we should be doing at the moment. We should mark out the eyes though. That should be something that we do. And Frozen, thank you, appreciate it. The art stuff, like I always love doing art, and sculpting, I don't know, it felt like it just fit streaming really well because you can do up close detail stuff, and it just, I don't know, just kind of seemed like it worked. Certainly takes up a lot of time, and Twitch is good for things that take up a lot of time. Is this where we want the eyes? Let's see. It's about right, I think. We can always move them if we need to. I may have something I can do bigger eye divots with. Let's do that. Okay. Is that sufficiently creepy? I think it is. Okay, that's good. That at least kind of marks out where the face is. It will help us kind of work and tune from there. All right, have a good night, Emily. Thanks for stopping by. Hopefully we'll see you, what's today? Wednesday, so Friday. If you're able to make it. Same time. Same bat time, same bat channel. Just trying to put a nose in here. So, then from there... So here's another thing. Draw the circle for the head and the face, and then halfway between the top of the circle and the bottom of the circle is the eyes, and then halfway between the eyes and the bottom of the chin should be your mouth. Yep. Very cool, Jack. Yeah, OBS, it takes a little bit like of futzing and tweaking to get right, but once you get the basics down of it, it works really well. And I think Twitch actually has on their website some how-tos to set up to stream to them specifically. You just got to Google it. But it's been super flexible because you notice that I'm running 2 webcams right now, and they're just both plugged into my computer. So pretty easy to do that. I can do a desktop. Here, I'll show you guys real quick. I have my screencast. So you can see, you can easily stream a desktop. You can load a picture-in-picture over it. So this would be a little more like a gaming setup. And there's a lot of plugins for it and stuff too. So if you want to have it, where it's, ringing a bell every time you get a new subscriber or somebody donates, it all has built in for it. Alright. So I'll show you guys. So Jack, when you're done with OBS, is there a way to delete the software? Yeah, I think you just delete it. I don't think OBS actually installs onto your system. If not, I think there is an uninstall in the folder. I'm not entirely sure. I'd highly recommend looking into it. But OBS is good. OBS is safe. It's good stuff. And I think you could do a thumbnail or a thumb drive install too, because I don't think it requires system resources. So if you install it on a thumb drive, then you just pop in the thumb drive whenever you want to use it. So it's another good option. But okay. So here's some of our reference art that I found online. So I kind of like the sort of the pose a little bit. I think that's kind of probably what's influencing what I'm doing here. But you notice how nicely dynamic it is, right? The head's not straight on, it's a little turned to the side, the head's cocked a little bit, the chest is turned, there's a little bit of a twist into the torso. That's all the stuff that kind of gives it personality and life, right? So we'll just keep this set aside. Do need a bigger workspace for sure. Okay. So this is good for right now. I think for this guy, we got kind of the look, but he needs some friends. He looks a little lonely. So the question here is, how are we? So let's see. Let's go back to our reference, right? So we have the Wither. The Wither, excuse me. The Wither he's wearing the other guy's almost like shoulder pads, right? But I found this photo. This is an actual conjoined twin. There's a fetus that was born this way, so it's a little bit morbid, but you can see how both of the skulls actually, they all fuse into one side, and then they just have a really wide spine. So I thought this was a good reference photo. It's another thing that can really help your art is by finding reference photos and constantly refer to them and look at them. You'll be surprised how much more improvement you'll see. So do we want to do just a couple shoulder pads really easy like, or do we want to make them look a little more tortured and pieced together? It'd be really simple just to like knock them in there and then call it good, but I kind of feel like we should maybe have one that's a really like a bit more sideways, and then one that's kind of a little turned and down, right? Like the one on the side should almost, I think, maybe look sad, right? Like he's just, oh, I'm a shoulder and it sucks. And then the other one maybe will not, like he will have like no lower jaw. So I don't know. And also, I don't know if they should be the same size heads, or should they? Should they all be the same size heads? Huh. Let's think about that for a sec. So Frozen, the question was, we're going to add the couple of heads, and we're trying to think of like how we're going to add them. Because the Wither in Minecraft, there are two smaller heads, and they're both like just boop here and there, right? So it'd be like, maybe not that small. Let's knock out a piece of clay, it's a little bigger. So yeah, about that size. This would be like right about here, right? You know, and I guess if, you know, maybe around the nape of the neck, right around there. So I don't know. I don't know if we want to go that design, or if we want it kind of like sideways, like he's tortured and looking off to the side, like really get some like difference to it. What if this arm... Ooh, okay, here's an idea. So what if this arm that we have here is actually the spine, like this here, but for the guy to the side? I like that idea. Because then we can kind of build the rib cage in a little around what's already going on, and then when we sculpt it together, it should be interesting. Yeah, let's do that. So how big do we want this? This skull is a good bit smaller. Let's kind of just mock up the skull a little bit. So unfortunately our proportions are going to be a little less measurable on this size because it's smaller than what we're going to have on the sheet. Cool. Yeah, I kind of think if we go a little more grotesque with it, it'll give it more personality. There's I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Stan Winston School of Art online. They have a bunch of just different online courses or webcasts of different art stuff. And one of the master sculptors that they have in there. Gosh, I'm so bad with names tonight. He breathes so much personality into his pieces that there's a life in the sculpt, right? It's a character. It's immediately a character. It's not just an anatomy. It's not just, oh, that's a skeleton, or oh, that's just an alien. It has a personality. It immediately gives itself a name, almost, you know? And that's kind of what we want to do. Is when you want to look at this, you want to just be like, oh, you know, it's almost like a photo, a 3D photo taken in time of something. So let's see. A little bit of a skull shape, right? Man, I wish this was only as detailed as I ever had to get, because getting a rough approximate shape that looks good is kind of easy. It's once we get into it, that's going to be difficult. Just work that in there. And just a rough shape, so something like that. Let's bring this up. So let's take some of this off. It should be closer to the body, I think. Does that look too much like a shoulder pad? I think it kind of does. Yeah, it kind of does look like a little bit like a grumpy old man with teeth. Let's add a little help for this. This is getting deformed. I don't know, does it look a little too... like a shoulder? Too much like a shoulder? Yeah, maybe a little more forward. You're right. I mean, we need to fill in some more body behind it too, right? Like this needs a... let's try mocking out some ribs. Maybe that's what we're missing. Okay, so OBS on Twitch and the server and all that stuff, you're gonna have to look that one up. It's a bit like a specific, like you do A and then you do B and you do C and then you do D. So if you go online and you just look up like Twitch and OBS, like Twitch will probably have some walkthroughs like to step you through each of the settings, and it'll also show you how to go do those settings too. I'm not trying to brush off the question, but it's particular enough that I think it would be more helpful if you had that right in front of you than me trying to kind of step you through it. But it's also good too, because I mean, to me, if you're most of like software questions and setup and stuff, you can usually find a lot of tutorials for. So if you're able to find to Google your way through it, you'll be able to do anything. I promise. Like I would need to break stream and just like bring up my screen and show you and step you through to explain it well, otherwise it'll be super confusing. Okay. A little bit of a floppy skull. Yeah, I think like getting in the, we either need to get the skull really in there and have the rest of the body shape in there, or have them going forward a little bit. Forward, I think, matches the game a little more too. So we're just gonna mock up some rib cage real quick, and then we'll add that to it as well, and we'll see if that helps the shape any. Yeah, you know, it's interesting because, you know, you're seeing all these different things in it, and I bet you once you say, hey, it looks like either an old man or a robot, what's happening is what's called pareidolia. Pareidolia is sort of something that human beings are really good at, and that's why you can sit and you can look at clouds in the sky and see bunnies and bears and snakes and dragons and peoples and faces and all that sort of thing. We are hardwired as people to be pattern recognition experts, and to our advantage and disadvantage. Makes us really good at recognizing people. That's why you can actually recognize faces and distinguish between, you know, your mom and the neighbor. But it also can work heavily to our disadvantage. And when, you know, people will see demons and devils and those sort of thing in pictures and in photos, and, you know, when you see something weird in a window and you'd be like, that looks like a little girl, ghost girl, and that's pareidolia. That's what pareidolia is kicking in. It's your pattern recognition. And one of the funny side effects of it is that when it kicks in, it's very hard to unsee. I mean, you know, if you see, like, if somebody makes a joke of, like, you know, oh, hey, that looks like a wiener, you can't unsee that. It's just, it's forever ingrained in your brain. So the same thing when we're doing stuff like this, you know, it's like, it looks like a robot to you, and you're going to always see that robot. Sorry, total tangent. Just kind of trying to get a little bit of a mock-up. The neck needs to be longer. I always find it really interesting. I mean, they're, you know, if you actually think about it, all of reality that you perceive is a construction of your brain, right? Your brain is taking all the pieces and putting them together and trying to make a best guess on what it thinks is going on, not what is actually there. I mean, if you think about it, you cannot see ultraviolet, you can't see radio waves and all that stuff, but visible light is just an end of that electromagnetic spectrum. But there are bugs and birds that actually can see more into that spectrum, so they have a whole different view of reality and see things totally different than we do. Let's try and so what do we think? And you gotta use your imagination a little bit. It's like this is the head, and this is the rib cage, and we'll pull the rib cage back into this rib cage. What do we think? A little more like a mutated twin, a little less like a shoulder pad? Or do we want to move it up higher? I kind of like higher. What do you guys think? Yeah. I kind of like it looking sad too. I kind of want one of them to just be like, you know, life's over. This is ruined. You know, I'm not the main head. I'm the dude on the side. It's like he's forever Luigi. He's forever Robin. You know, he's He's never going to be the main head, right? The big head in the middle that gets to do all the thinking, all the talking, all the choices are made. He's just an appendage. And so darn right that he should be depressed about it. Anna Jean? Excellent, thank you. So glad to have you on board. So I'm just going to bolster this a little bit. I think I'm happy with it here. I think. We may lift it a little as we go. Okay, so now that we're we're gonna be naming these now. So this is Bob. Bob's life sucks. He's the lefty, right? So he's not even the right-hand man, so to speak. He's just they probably said, hey, you know, what are we gonna do? Well, let's replace his arms with other heads. And they thought it looked weird with just one, so they put him on, and he's like the last one they added. Okay. So don't worry about this. We'll clean it up, make it look all good. We're just kind of getting his buddies squared away. Okay, his other buddy. Other buddy's not going to have a jaw. Lower jaw. Other buddy can't talk. So his life sucks for another reason, but he doesn't know any better. So he digs it. He loves the fact that they scare the living bejesus out of, you know, Minecrafters. So he should look intense, as much as a skull can look intense. So maybe he's a little bigger? Yeah, his head size could be a little more normal because by taking the jaw away, the head's going to seem a little smaller, right? And we can add to that asymmetry, so a little more of the asymmetry here. Middle guy should certainly be the predominant one, though. Diesel, welcome, sir. All right, so little less of a blob, right? Let's go to let's try this one. I like playing with different tools just to see what gives me the result I'm looking for. And feel free to yell at me if I'm doing something off camera and not paying attention. So there's the dishes. And it's about there, right? Right. All right, so we have Bob Stevens. So is there a conflict in the naming of Steve that there's also Minecraft Steve, which is your protagonist? So maybe that's partly why Wither is a bit upset, is because he was Steve before this Minecraft guy showed up, and now he's just all butthurt that, you know, Minecraft Steve, he should be Minecraft Steve. He's in Minecraft, he's Steve, he's bigger, he's scarier, but the other guy gets all the credit. Alright, so let's talk about head placement. So I think this dude should be definitely facing forward more. I don't know, maybe he shouldn't. Here. You know what would probably help us visualize this better? Where's my smaller one? Yeah, there we go. It's about halfway mouth. Boom. Boom. There's my tool. Okay. There's my green tip tool. There we go. These are silicone rubber tip tools, and the white one is softer than the gray one. So the gray is a little firmer. There we go. Easier to reference. Oh, that's great, Frozen. Thank you for answering that. It's probably also worth mentioning that I repost all my YouTube or stuff to YouTube, and all the links for everything are below. So I repost the streams in their entirety so that you can just watch them at your leisure. And that goes for anybody who's interested in catching up on the last projects. They're all up on YouTube, and I'm actually working on a recap video right now that will hopefully get done this weekend. I apologize if I can't promise that, because life finds a way. So let's see. Dope. I actually like that. He's looking a little more straight ahead. He's looking down, and Muffins is looking up. And yes, I dropped Muffins. But I think that's a good dynamic, right? They're all looking kind of different ways, and in a way, that means when you're looking at this thing, Muffins is kind of looking at you, right? So I mean, if there's kind of pointed at the camera, you kind of see the effect, which is, we may play with the head positioning that, make him a little more scary, but you want that gaze to be just like into your soul. So that works, I think. And I'm trying to think, like, how should we approach? Do we really want to build out a whole nother body for him and having it be kind of that? Do we want to kind of do a little bit of a mutated body? Maybe just the spine. Maybe we just really pull the spine down into it with the rest. And then in the back, we'll bring the spine through a little bit and fuse it here. So it's almost like a little more like a tentacle. And then that way it gives it a little more character. So you have another set of ribs here, and we'll bring all the ribs in together. And then this will be a little more different. It'll just give it some more asymmetry so it's not so perfect. I mean, if you're talking about sort of the things that we specifically find interesting about the human form and the human body, is that symmetry is really, really, really important to us. When you look at a face, you tend to find faces that are symmetrical more beautiful. And celebrities, by and large, tend to have very symmetrical faces. The asymmetry is a sign of illness for us. So by using that sort of basic human characteristic, we can exploit that, and that means that we'll make something more asymmetrical to help make it more frightening and disgusting. It actually connects to a revulsion part of your brain, the disgust part of your brain, which you do have. You do have part of your brain power that is designated to responding to disgust. Disgust is important because it helps you not eat food that's bad for you, because feces and maggots and rotting things are unhealthy to us, that if we are prone to avoid it, then it works in our favor, and we survive better, and we propagate. Maybe the spine doesn't completely join up in there. Maybe what we do is we have the spine tuck in a little. So, I don't know. I'm not going to really mount that one down until we figure it out a little better, I think. And actually, it should probably come from underneath. The attachment point's wrong. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hate to say it, but we have hit our wrapping up point for the night. We actually have made fantastic progress. We went from nothing but an empty board to 3 named heads and a pretty good blocked out shape, I'd have to say. So, Muffins, Bob, and Steve. I'm actually going to write that down so I don't remember. Let's see, we got M, B, and S. Muffins, Bob, and Steve. They will be back on this Friday. And I will be back this Friday. And we're going to keep chugging along on this. So let's just clean up my tools a little bit. And then hopefully, if Pancake or Lugnut don't decide to jump up here and make a meal out of one of them, that we will be ready to pick up where we left off. So, on that note... Come on. There we go. End card. Thank you guys so much for joining. I'm super excited that we have so many new people stopping by. This is going to be a really fun project, and I think it's going to really turn out well. And when we take it to the final phase, we're going to be able to mold it, make copies of it, and really, really, really like pay off on all this hard work that we've been doing. If you aren't subscribed already, please subscribe to my Twitch. This helps me know how I'm doing and let me know what you'd like to see. I post everything back up to YouTube. It's one of the things I do. As soon as I flip the switch, I start exporting it out. So I apologize, my YouTube channel is not really handled other than just throwing the Twitch stuff over there, but you can go check out the old projects or see any of the parts you missed. Links are below. Also, follow me on Twitter. That's where I post a lot of my stuff. Everything's under the name PropCraft to make it nice and easy for everybody. And I hope to see you guys again Friday at 10 o'clock. Every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm going to be here and doing stuff. And I think this one's probably going to take, probably a couple weeks, I think, at least. But I hope to see you guys here. And I really, really, really hope to see you back Friday, 10 o'clock. Have a good night.